Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hobby Homestead. Today we are going to make some free compost with fall leaves. I may look a little weird going up and down my street dragging a big tarp full of other people's leaves, but I don't care. It's worth it. Every fall, people rake their leaves out of their garden beds, off their lawns, and either into brown bags or onto the street for loose leaf pickup by their municipality or township. But some of us gardeners and environmentalists who have the inside scoop do something even better with them. We use them to make free compost and free mulch. In doing so, we keep our neighborhood's homegrown organic matter local instead of shipping it off in the fall and then buying it back in the spring. We also protect overwintering insects by leaving a lot of the leaves directly on gardens and by loosely piling them for passive composting. That's the kind that doesn't get too hot. If you've ever wondered why you don't see fireflies on summer evenings anymore, it's because their winter habitats, the fallen leaves, are being removed. There are thousands of insects that rely on the leaf litter, from butterflies to bees to beetles, just like the firefly. I like to fill a bay of my compost system with leaves from my street in the fall. They decompose slowly in here, providing carbon or brown material that's needed to balance the nitrogen-rich material, or the greens. If you try composting greens only, that's things like kitchen scraps, without enough browns, you end up with a smelly, slimy sludge. The microorganisms that do this decomposing work need a balanced diet to thrive, and brown material provides that. It can also act as a sponge to keep your compost from getting too wet, and its light and fluffy nature can help keep the pile from becoming anaerobic or being starved of oxygen. So it's win-win-win. I'm going to spread more leaves in a garden where I would like to try growing some more spring ephemerals. That's native plants that normally grow under the tree canopy in our native forests. They like soil that is made from decomposing leaves, tree matter. This stuff might blow away, but the forecast calls for not as much wind coming up and plenty of rain. Maybe even some snow, which will hold this stuff down nicely. And a great place for them is up in my original woodland garden. We had a really dry summer, and so this garden doesn't get watered. It has to just fend for itself. And it'll help it a lot if it has a fresh cover of leaves. Unfortunately, these Manitoba maples that we have at the back of our property don't lose a lot of leaves. They break down pretty quickly, like immediately, so they don't really mulch the soil. Right on top. We have wild ginger and ramps and fiddlehead ferns and woodland poppies and Virginia waterleaf and so many things. I don't even remember the rest of them. Jack in the pulpits, cardinal flowers in this garden here. Really the only fall leaves that we get in our yard and garden are from this silver maple. One tree. We have all these mature trees around us, and this is the only one that really gives us leaves. So we've planted trees that will give us more leaves and more effective shade canopy, but that'll take time. And when the leaves do fall on our lawn, we leave some and we rake some up into the garden beds. By spring, they're gone. And if you hear people saying that by spring the leaves are not gone, they've formed a dense mat and it's rotting and it's gross and it's anaerobic, then either it's oak leaves, which can be a problem for that if they're too thick, or you don't have enough life in your soil to actually decompose them. And maybe adding a little bit of compost as an inoculant could help solve that problem and help your leaves break down faster. This tarp is purely for leaf collection. I get it out once a year. Another free source of carbon for our composting is chicken bedding. Unlike the leaves, this isn't free, but we buy it for the chickens and then we repurpose it for the compost, so it's kind of free. We buy a pine bedding, but straw is another common animal bedding that can be used as the carbon in composting. The unique thing about used animal bedding is that it comes with a hit of nitrogen from the poop. The best way to clean these nesting boxes out is with a shop vac, but I don't feel like digging it out of the back of the garage. So I'm just gonna use my garden gloves. It's on Kim's to-do list for like the end of next summer, after the outdoor kitchen is done, to redo our chicken coop a little bit. She built this chicken coop in 2016, so almost 10 years ago. And it was the first chicken coop she'd ever built. It was for our much smaller backyard and we moved it with us. And since then, there's a few things we've thought about that we would like to change in the design. I want a nest box where the eggs can roll away. I want to be able to pull it down for easy cleaning, just scrape everything out, which is the way we have the main coop there. Of course, other considerations are whether or not we want to try a deep bedding method. Deep bedding is where throughout the winter months, you just keep adding fresh bedding on top of their soil bedding to keep it fresh on their feet, but then it composts slowly underneath and that generates heat. And we used to do that when I was a kid, help keep them warm in the winter, and nobody wants to be scraping out frozen manure. But I do remember it was smelly. I remember as a kid playing in and around the chicken coop, which was like a full-size shed because we were on a farm, and it was a really smelly situation. And I think it was probably just because, no offense, mom and dad, but we probably didn't stay on top of the deep litter as much as we could have, keeping things piled up with fresh bedding. I don't know why. Maybe we just had too many chickens. I don't know. But what I understand now about composting and about the importance of a balance between your nitrogen and your carbon, I think I could make it work. I think I could introduce the proper amount of carbon, the right kind of carbon to make sure that your coop didn't stink while just topping up fresh stuff on top of the poop. Anyway, all this talk about carbon and poop is why I'm doing this today. This is going into the compost bin. This is more free carbon, free compost. If you don't have chickens, maybe you know somebody who does or who has rabbits, like pet rabbits. If they're willing to empty their rodent's cage into a bag for you to pick up and then put in your compost, that's free compost right there. The bedding from pet rodents, the bedding from chickens, these things are all great to add to your compost. Ducks, if somebody has ducks, that's awesome fertilizer. You just need that ingredient plus time, and then you get your free compost. It's like I need more than 3 bays in my composter. That one is almost finished compost, but it's not going to be finished till the spring. I wanted 1 bay just for leaf mold, but now the leaves are just becoming the carbon in the compost. All right, I'm going to dump it there. I'm actually going to leave those open for now. Normally I wouldn't leave these open because I don't want critters getting in, but there's no exposed fresh kitchen scraps. At this point, it's like ripped up old tomato plants, leaves, and chicken bedding, and some corn stalks without the corn on them. I do bring my kitchen scraps out and put them in these, but at this point they're so buried beneath all the layers that I'm not worried about rodents coming. And the reason I'm leaving them open is because of the rain we're about to get. I want these nice and rained on before I close them up for winter. All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed watching me scrape some leaves off the street like a weirdo. This is how we get free compost for our garden beds here. The leaves are such a win. Compost is expensive. I used to spend $400 every year bringing in a big dump truck load of compost that I would top my beds and my pots and everything with. And now, finally, with this system in place, this is its second fall, so it's only been here for 12 months. Next spring, we're going to be harvesting the first of our homemade compost in a batch that's large enough to actually do something. We do have a worm composter, which I love, but right now it's all taken apart because it's an outdoor thing for us and the worms just freeze in the winter. And it also doesn't produce sufficient amounts of compost for my garden beds. However, I have used that stuff in my indoor seed starting and I love it. So I definitely still recommend worm composting, vermicomposting. But on a larger scale, these bins are exciting me a lot. I'm really looking forward to next spring when we're spreading the first batch of compost that we've made in these bins. And now we've got 2 more bins here that are getting filled up. They are going to settle a lot. So by spring, I'm going to consolidate them. I'm going to stir them. And then that one's going to be sitting for a bit. And then once this compost is done or out of this bin, then we can flip it over into that one. That'll become our active bin where we constantly add new stuff to. So it's always going to be a shuffle. But so far, it's been working really well for us. My fingers are so cold, I can barely make them cross. If you enjoy gardening content, no matter what the season, please subscribe. I make videos every week out here in my garden. Eventually it'll shift to inside and seed starting and growing mushrooms indoors and that kind of thing. But I try to get out into the garden with the camera as often as I can because there's still so much going on. There's so much to see and so much to show. And I'd love to have you along for that. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate that as well. And I'll see you next time. It's the next day. I'm still looking just as disheveled as I was yesterday. I was editing the video where I was bringing in all of the leaves and composting them, and my wonderful and amazing neighbor said that he found a bunch of brown bags. And he loaded them up in his truck and he brought them to me. There's somebody on our street or near our street, our neighborhood, who mulches all of her leaves and then bags them. And he noticed that one year, and so he's been bringing them to me. So amazing. And I was gonna go help him load them all into his truck and bring them to my yard. But the pressure canner was going. I couldn't leave the house, so he did it all by himself. Thanks, Phil, if you're watching this. You're the best neighbor ever. A lot of these leaves are gonna go into the compost. They're either gonna stay in the bags and just form leaf mold over the winter, which is like a rich decomposed leaf substance. Or I'm going to put some into the actual compost bays. And then also there's enough now that the chickens can get some. They're afraid of brown bags. It's noisy. Just making sure that there's no mold in these. I think they were freshly bagged. That's the only thing to watch for if you're going to give your chickens leaves. Make sure they haven't started to mold yet. I'll give them a couple more bags after this. Okay, bye for real this time.